incredible opening scene, and then like the scene that's immediately followed by Brady Corbett's got some opinions. Let's do David Lynch.
It's a lot there. There's a lot there, and I think great. And The Brutalist is like, oh yeah, they used to make movies that were about things, and maybe it's an exploration of a thing, and maybe you don't have answers, but let's talk about the thing. Which reminds me, let's talk about David Lynch because the show has started. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jet Lo.
I'm Gareth Higgins. The conversation never ends, and this is the film talk, and it's our conversation about David Lynch, who, as you all know, passed away last week. And Jet, I'll say this: I saw the news of his death, and I burst into tears.
Yeah.
I burst into tears, and I pondered that.
Yeah,
It's
me
only
too.
happened with one. It's only happened with for me with one other artist. I'd never met David Lynch, and I think it's because of two things. One is not just the work itself, and by the work I mean the films and the TV series, but also the short films and the paintings and the coffee and the weather reports. But I'd also include the second thing, which I might say the person or the persona that showed up in interviews. Because the way that man talked, I don't know if his interviews were an affectation or they were just unfiltered Lynch, as it were. He's called Jimmy Stewart from Mars for a reason. There was a kindness and a guilelessness in the way he talked, which is in contrast to the bleakness of some of the elements of the stories that he told. I can't say that I felt like I knew him, but maybe I did have a little bit of a parasocial relationship with him. And so I felt real sadness when he died. I can't say that I felt a sense of, oh my goodness, we're not going to get another David Lynch film, because I think we were so like abundantly provided for by his work.
110 directorial credits, 110.
Yeah, right. So that's what I felt. And I thought about you because you're one of the people who really helped me care about, and I'm not going to say understand, but appreciate and receive the works of David Lynch. That's my initial reaction. What about you?
Well, I cried as well. The only other two filmmakers that I cried about, I sobbed like a baby when I heard that Roger Corman died. We talked about that on the show. And I was riding, I was on the Underground. I was going to work for a very famous, maybe the world's best-selling British novelist who I worked for a time. I'm on the Underground, and across from me, someone opened up the newspaper, The Guardian, and it said Stanley Kubrick died.
Mhm.
And that affected me. And Lynch, and I thought about Stanley Kubrick because I saw it on his death report in the newspaper, and as soon as I saw that, it reminded me of like, oh, you got famous. He made his bones with that photo of a newspaper guy, at a newspaper kiosk, looking mournful with the headline that FDR had died. And do you know how I found out about how David Lynch died?
No.
I live up in the mountains in New Mexico. I'm driving through the mountains, and I knew I had seen that there was a little radio station in this town called Madrid, which is a funky town in New Mexico, which is
Yeah, I
like
know,
the
man.
nearest town to where I am, like Madrid's
Uh, uh,
funky is an understatement. And I found it on the dials. I'd made a note. I'll post a note. Like, I'm going to tune into the radio station just to, it's like 10 watts of pure music power, what have you. Like funkiest, like probably a little cinder block building with a little antenna, right? I'm driving through the winding mountains. It was kind of misty, New Mexico, 7,000, 8,000 feet up. And it's like a sort of kind of jazzy music comes on. And then as soon as I turn it on, a couple seconds of, I don't know, it sounded kind of like light jazz. And then music faded. And the guy came on, raspy voices. We've just learned David Lynch has died. As soon as I turned on the radio. And that just felt incredibly appropriate. I had to pull over.
so why did you
And
cry?
why did I cry? So there's two things, right? There's the work, and then there's the man, as demonstrated in his videos, that people are on Threads, which I'm not. I'm got to get off all social media, folks. Don't do it. Don't follow us at all, for God's sakes. Jet_low Threads. Don't do it. And it's just been filled. The whole time it's been filled with Lynch. The algorithm is delivering this, right? The algorithm is delivering. and the babies it's birthing is all of, Lynch's interviews, hundreds, thousands, his sayings, his musings, his pronunciations on things, pronouncements on things. Um, Obviously incredibly influential to people. I think he was so tapped into the unconscious that made him conscious, utterly conscious. He was utterly conscious, and that has had a great effect, very positive effect on people hearing about his musings on art. But his films, look, to be very clear, I'm an old guy now, right? And for younger listeners and viewers, they may not understand the impact that he had. In the middle of the 80s, America was under this Reagan fever, conservative fever, kind of born in the USA, misquoting, misusing the Bruce Springsteen song, Top Gun, Rah Rah, White Man. And in the middle of that, in the mid 80s, was a film released called Blue Velvet. And
Mhm.
it was like a meteor had hit, a quality meteor, not that terrible Henry Fonda film with terrible drunken cameo, I'm sure, by Trevor Howard, but a serious meteor that hit that said all of this is baloney. There is something else going on here in our deep unconscious national life.
Mhm.
And Blue Velvet was a critical and a commercial success, not a huge commercial success, but a critical success. And then a few years later, we had Twin Peaks, which utterly changed the culture. It's hard to explain to people. Imagine, as something as popular as Big Bang Theory, but it's a David Lynch film, and that was Twin Peaks. It made a huge impact, and David Lynch showed that there's a different kind of culture possible. That you do not have to subscribe or participate in the way they wanted you, a sick culture. And that's
Mhm.
part of, I think, the sadness for Lynch's death is that he represented a healthiness in what other people might call depraved images was in that exploration of the underside of the unconscious was a desire and an achievement of health. And I think that's why I cried because one of the great teachers, not that I subscribe to, for instance, transcendental meditation or anything, but one of the great teachers, not just one of the great artists, had passed away. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
It does make sense to, and uh, I, I do, and I appreciate you bringing up this issue about like what you might call depraved, and that Blue Velvet in particular, which is white, it literally opens with a white picket fence and says, "Let's face reality here." I also understand why some people in engaging with his work uh, may be so affected by the darkness in it that they maybe don't get to experience the rest of it, or they make a conscious judgment that the darkness overwhelms the light.
One star review
And
from Roger Ebert. One star.
so
Ebert was not engaging.
I, I respect people who felt that, but it makes sense to me when somebody like Naomi Watts or somebody like Laura Dern or somebody like Isabella Rossellini, who not only acted for David Lynch but was partnered to him for some time. I mean, this is a complicated guy, and probably not the easiest person to be partnered to or married to. But when women who've worked with him talk about him being the best person and running the kindest sets and awakening a sense of awe and wonder in the work. And then when my couple of dear friends, Sarah Mason and David Dark in Nashville, who helped me see that Twin Peaks is is nothing less than the light and shadow of the story of America. And I mean America, the
Yes.
myth. Not,
Yes.
I normally would say the US, the United States, but America, the myth. And within that story is the light. And
Yes.
Twin Peaks at one level is the most romantic vision of the world. The music is the most romantic
Yeah,
and
yeah,
luscious.
incredibly romantic filmmaker.
I completely hear it when people say it's a film or it's a TV series lasting over a quarter of a century, that's about violence against women, and I can't second guess women for whom that's the story. But for me, actually, it's a series that is dedicated to honoring the legacy and the memory of one young woman. The entire thing is about the search for Laura Palmer, and every character in the show is either trying to honor her memory or running away uh, from it. And frankly, everybody in the show is trying to honor a better story of what America could be, or running away from the darkness and the bleak underbelly that exists within the American myth. He did make two films that are more, as it were, explicitly and non-ironically heartfelt.
I don't know if his films were ironic. I know we don't have
Ironic's
much
the wrong
time.
word.
Yeah, because I don't think I think
That's the
maybe
wrong
he's
word.
misjudged as being ironic. I don't find him ironic
Yes,
at all.
and maybe you can help me with the word. And I'll just briefly say, of course, The Straight Story and The Elephant Man are films you can show to children without any qualms, and they awaken the childlike within. The Elephant Man awakens compassion for marginalized people and for people who've been excluded and rejected. And The Straight Story awakens a sense of just be a decent person above all else. Just be a decent person. And I don't think that the person who made those films and infused those films with so much of a sense of himself um, could be the bleak person that some people hold him to be. I think this was a person who believed in beauty and joy and dreams, and he fueled my dreams for a long time. And I'm grateful that I still have, would you say 110 directorial credits? I haven't seen 2/3 of what he's
Yeah, I
done.
mean, you could just watch his shorts. Look at something he made when he was 21, a fictitious Anison commercial. It's like a minute long, made in 1967, starring Jack Fisk. Who's Jack Fisk? I don't know. Have you seen There Will Be Blood? He was the production designer of that and Killers of the Flower
Yes.
Moon and so much more. You can look at that. You can watch his Comic-Con message. He had to deliver some videos, to promote a project. I guess probably Twin Peaks: Return to Comic-Con. I mean, it's great. It's a lot. It's a lot of fun. So I don't know who thinks he's bleak because he's such a romantic filmmaker. Their films are full of such joy and the absolute pleasure, abundant pleasure taken in the idea of transcendence and transcending the bleakness. And I can't think of anybody better. I know you got to go.
Well, I got to ask you
I'm
one
here
question,
to answer all
and
questions.
we can leave it here, and
Yes.
I'll use this as a lens when I go back and watch more of his films and or more particularly more of his shorts and his TV stuff. Do you think there's a in that transcendence that he's aiming for? Do you think there's a God in Lynch's work, like a divine figure, or is he leaning into humans just haven't manifested their fullness yet?
I don't. Yeah, when you say there's a God, that seems that and to me implies separateness to
Mhm.
a separate figure. And I don't. And with Lynch, I get it is a whole. He was a painter. So you think about a painting. I don't look at a separate element of a painting. You look at the painting as a whole. That whole being the universe. The whole being existence. So I don't think of him as somebody that is grappling with the idea of a God. But see his films delving into the mysteries of existence in total. So there is nothing separate. That person over there is me. I may not realize it because I'm not conscious. Maybe if I meditate or if I create art, I will realize that person is me and that we are all part of the same thing. That's what comes to mind. Also, watch Mulholland Drive.
Well, so
Watch
that's what I
any
was
of his
gonna ask.
stuff. Watch
Is
episode 8 of Twin
where
Peaks: The
should you
Return.
where should you start and go? Be gentle. Be gentle with
Yeah,
people who haven't.
yeah, where do you start? Here's the thing. I tell people, here's the order to watch his films. Watch them in the order that he made them. Watch the fictitious Anison commercial from '67. Watch the Alphabet, which is great, the grandmother short film. Then just go to watch Elephant Man. Sorry, watch Eraserhead, then Elephant Man. Dune. I'm a huge fan of Dune. For a bunch of reasons. We don't have much time. But watch them in order. He's a fantastic romantic filmmaker. Now, I had to stop Twin Peaks: Return episode 8 for the same reason I stopped reading Ishiguro's The Unconsoled. It's like, it's too good. I
Mm.
can't right now in this state of mind that I'm in. So I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to return to Twin Peaks: The Return to keep on going. Watch them all when you have the time. He's a deeply romantic, brilliant artist, and I think a lot of people are finding out that maybe he was kind of a brilliant human as well. What are we gonna talk about on the next show?
We'll talk about an interesting film. We'll talk about a film that has something to say about things. We'll talk about a film that appears to have been made in potentially 1966. and that if you go to see it, that is The Brutalist, you might feel like you've been transported back there.
To when movies mattered.
It's a film about which I have mixed feelings.
Well, it's a rich, heady stew. We will be talking about the Brutalist. Folks, thanks for listening to Gareth and I, our musings. Our musings. I could go on. I got some notes here. We haven't got to my notes. I could go on for an hour, but as you can see, if you're watching the video of this, I'll put the video on the YouTubes. Gareth is in some swanky hotel room, so I think he's leading some retreat of
We're doing
some
Lynch
kind.
lighting. We're doing Lynch lighting
I
here
kind of
for
felt like
both.
being in the darkness.
Yes.
And
Yes.
after the show is over, I'm going to step into the light. Folks, thanks for listening. I've been Jed Lowe.
I've been Gareth Higgins. We'll keep talking
Next time. Thank you, David. Thank you. He made the world a better place. He did.